skibbity toilet and Riz and the kid. Oh, he's so cool. The Rizzler.
There's no lack of goth mommies that aren't gonna fucking kill you when you go to fuck them.
He's like the father figure of the world. Like,
what?
Should there be goth mommies? Should there be furries? Why should we let the fear of death control our lives so much?
Exactly. You taking up the proposition that yes, you should be afraid of death?
I'm taking up the proposition that you shouldn't. I don't know if it's a problem, but I feel like I am not afraid of death. And philosophically, I don't think you should be.
You see people die around you, right? But you've never experienced that death, right? So you don't know what it's like to experience it. So you don't know what's going to be on the other side of that. You would accept that?
Yes, I accept that.
Yeah. So what's on the other side of that is completely unknown. So you presumably say, okay, well, if it's unknown, I shouldn't be afraid of that, right?
Not necessarily. I think I'm afraid of the unknown.
If death is the ultimate unknown, why aren't you afraid of that ultimate unknown? What makes that unknown special compared to just like walking around the dark?
I think the ultimate unknown and walking around the dark is scary for the same reason, which is lack of control.
Okay, but even though it's like the ultimate unknown and you agree that you're afraid of the unknown, for some reason you're not afraid of death. You're just arguing like a descriptive, like you're just arguing like, oh, I feel this way because of, I don't know, X drug I've taken or X relationship I've had or something, right? You don't know what it is, but you're just arguing that and then saying, oh, well, now I'm not afraid of death. What do you have to say about that? It's like, I have nothing to say about that. It's just something that you've, spawned out of whatever your physical interactions are. Now, I know this personally, who's very afraid of death, and then I had a year-long LSD phase. I don't think I've been afraid of a single thing after that year, I don't think. Yeah,
Not a single thing?
No, psychedelics are actually amazing with dealing with your fear of death, actually. I've actually had a couple of ego-death experiences where I forgot my name, I forgot my race, my nationality, my religion, everything. And at the end of it, when I allowed myself to let go and surrender to the experience, allowed myself to die inherently so, I was allowed to let go of my fears and my anxieties and truly embrace the love and the light of the universe, and in a sense that I would have not been able to do so had I not surrendered to the unknown.
Don't you think that the surrender is more natural as far as like natural selection goes? We're supposed to.
The thing is that surrender is not natural. It's your ego, yourself will always hold on because it is in the nature of the ego and self to be such.
The surrender to the fear, I think, is what is natural. What you're doing is taking a substance to remove the fear. I think this fear is coded in by natural selection. It's how we've survived until now.
Well, yeah, but it's something that's now come about as a bad thing, right? Like there are certainly things in natural selection that are bad now because of the structures we've created in society.
Exactly.
And that's one of them. The fear of death is one of them.
I think everything in life is about balance, right? It's good to have a healthy fear of death.
Because you say you would have like a strong fear-based reaction if I were to like put a gun to your head and say I'm going to kill you right now.
For sure, I would.
Exactly. So you're not really not afraid of death. Whereas I have been like held at knife points, and I wasn't afraid even like slightly because of the LSD. It's not some like, oh look at me, I'm so cool. It's like just because I fucked up my brain. I get the point about balance, but the balance would like be weighted depending on the person, right?
Technically, walking down the stairs, I can fall and twist my neck and die. But if I roam around the world with that fear,
that's true.
However, if I'm standing at a cliff and I'm just falling hundreds of feet into a cave, that if I fall, I will definitely die. And I feel a healthy bit of fear there. It is not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah.
So it's a powerful situation.
Well, then let me bring up like a personal story. I don't want anyone to whatever pity me, but my brother, my like biological brother, died. It's kind of hard to explain. He got shot by a hunter. He was a furry.
No, be quiet. You're making a joke now. So he was like a furry, and
he had a deer persona. Yes.
Oh my god.
And he got shot.
Pretending to be a deer, and he got shot by a hunter.
Yes, he got shot by a hunter.
Being a furry and going out in the woods, and for whatever reason, if that is what you like to do with your life, then you might as well embrace the risk that some hunter will see you as food and will kill you.
I'm like if I was a deer inside.
No, but I think the reason that you don't do that,
you're a human being.
It's kind of a primal fear, death, right? It's like something that's intuitive. It's like something that you're born with. You can't you generally you can't not be born with it. You would have to be born with like a significant brain deformity to not be born to not be born with fear.
Oh yeah, I was.
Exactly.
Because those emotions you get, like fear, it doesn't feel like it's come about through something you've done, right? It's just like a response to something, like a response to some stimuli in the environment. So when you say, should I be afraid of this in this situation? Yeah, I would say in some situations, yeah. If you're like, for example, if you're like really lustful and you're going to, you're having a one night stand with some like lady who you go back to her apartment and she's got knives all over the wall and she like, yeah, I killed my last boyfriend with a knife while we were having sex. I would be very like, it's reasonable to be afraid and just leave there because of the fear of death, right? But that's only because you're following you're also following a base instinct, right? Those two base instincts don't like follow like they don't like hold primacy of each other. So either one is fine for you to pick. However, if your situation was that you wanted to like marry this person, like you fell in love with them, then I would say that it's not right for you to like be afraid of death and not like further that relationship with them. Does that make sense?
You're saying I should have the one night stand with the goth?
I think you should have
if your reason for having the one night stand with them is just because you want to shag and they're really attractive, then no, you shouldn't. I guess it would depend, right? It's like, do you want to enough? Like, which one does lust weigh above fear, right? It's like, which one do you weigh higher? However, if that was like you wanted to marry them in the future, then I would say that, like, in that scenario, then yes, you should always have that one night stand with them, right? Even though you're afraid that they might kill you.
As a human being, you should have the right filters that you do not land yourself in such a situation, because that just seems quite moronic.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem moronic. It's like you're blinded by lust.
Blinded by lust.
That's the thing, right? You get blinded by lust. If you do not have the basic ability to see red flags and run away when they present themselves, or remove yourself in
I feel like that's old, like, New York rhetoric or something. Lust is how, like, nature works. Like, lust, if I don't have the one night stand with that goth girl or whatever, that's scary.
Yeah, you go and jack off in a corner and you'll be fine. You live to fuck another day. Bro, there's no lack of goth mommies that aren't gonna fucking kill you when you go to fuck them.
Well, this is the thing, is like, should there be goth mommies? Should there be furries? Why should we let the fear of death control our lives so much? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly, right? That's exactly what I'm saying, right? You should allow the fear of death to control you, to control your other base desires, right? Like lust, or like, I don't know, hunger, something like that, right? Like you see a bit of food, but it's like rotting, right? So you're like, I don't want to go and eat that rotting piece of food because I might die eating it. You should let your fear take over in that scenario, because you're dealing with two base emotions. But if you're dealing with a higher emotion, or a higher cognitive value, like being a furry, then no, I don't think you should let it take over you, because you're executing something that's like kind of exclusive to the realm of humans. You're like rebelling against these subconscious natural drives. So I think if it's against something that's base, then you can do either one. But if it's not, if it's against something that's like higher on a human level, like being a furry, then no, then you shouldn't let fear get in the way. And
probably if you have a drive to be like, oh, I'm going to be a furry and I'm going to be a deer in the woods, unfortunately, even if you die, even though it is very sad that you die, you probably deserve to die, because your own brain's ability, your brain's ability.
I wouldn't go that far.
To decipher between what is good, what is to be done, and what is to be not to be done is so pathetic in that extent. In that
I see what you're saying. Maybe we should use the furries like dogs. You know what I'm saying? Like, just start hunting them. Just make that legal, because they're identifying as animals.
Exactly, man.
Then that's a moral question, and we'd like lose all scope of the original question that we had here.
The original question, I think, is kind of weird, because death is kind of an abstract that it refers to multiple particulars. So like, it's a universal thing, and then there's like, when you say I'm afraid of death, you're not saying you're afraid of anything. You're actually saying I'm afraid of what happens after death. I'm afraid of the unknown, or I'm afraid of the pain that this death will cause. I'm afraid of how sad my family will get. So I don't think I'm afraid of death actually means anything.
If you're religious, for example, like I am, I try to live a life where I am content with the cumulative experiences of my human experience.
That's big.
And absolutely.
Hold on, let me ask a question. You can go on.
Yeah.
It's a question. It's completely off topic. Let's say well, I guess slightly off topic. Well, no, it's majorly off topic, but it's got something to do with it. Let's say you die, and then millennia pass, you don't feel it, and then you wake up in like a little room, right? You leave the room, and then there's like a guy, and he speaks to you, and he's like, yeah, we're from an alien civilization far in the future. We've unlocked immortality, and we're just hoping that we're just bringing everyone back from the past to this point. We can send you back, and you can go die, or you can come live with us in paradise. But you need to pass this test. Okay, so can you tell me what your life's greatest achievement was? Could you answer that question?
Wait, is that for me or Arsalan?
It's for you.
For me?
You're micro celebrity, so you've got to answer the question.
Oh shit. My biggest achievement hasn't. Fuck, you calling me a micro celebrity is my biggest achievement.
It's even less than that. It's not even micro celebrity tier. It's like how many? Yeah. Sorry, I don't mean any offense with this, but
what would you call it? Micro. What is less than micro?
Yeah, sorry, no, your videos are very good, but it's like 7.1k followers.
Yeah.
So that's like
nothing.
Yeah, it's like I wouldn't even say. No, it's enough. You're followed by some of the like real celebrities that I follow, so maybe you would be.
I don't really care.
I also want to add, by the way, that hypothetical about the alien in the future, that's unironically a realistic scenario because there's infinite time in the future for that thing to happen. And if there was an alien society like that, they would want to bring people back from the past just to fuck with them, if anything. So realistically, when you die, you'll probably wake up 1 trillion years later being reincarnated by some alien civilization. Like, completely unironically, if you're an idiot.
Who am I? Who am I? What do I stand for? What do I not stand for? What are my principles? What are my morals? What are not my principles and what are not my morals? And if you truly know these things on a very deep personal level and you truly look within yourself, you come to you actually do find the answers. When you pass away, wouldn't you want to be remembered as someone who did more good than who did good, who was kind, who was loving, who was caring, who was generous, his friends felt safe to speak to. Only by looking within and only by recognizing who you are will you be able to set yourself a goal of who you want to be.
Well, what if I'm truly evil? Should I live out my nature? Should I reach downwards towards hell and become...
I don't believe that anyone is truly evil. Like, yes, there are people who've been through a lot of fucked up scenarios. They've seen so much chaos and they're unable to, find meaning within it and come to terms with it. They find themselves, acting out, and they have this mentality that, bad things happen to us, so why shouldn't I go and do bad things to other people? But then there's that question is that would you, as a human being, would you rather you truly be become the very thing that you, in a sense, you would hate to be? Or are you just in a lot of pain and just, can't see past it yet?
That's a very good question. Like, I think evil is actually a force for good on the cosmic scale. I think when we're talking about humans are part of a conspiracy that is anti-nature, and it's also anti-divine. So humans are kind of a mishap. Humans were, let's say, created by the devil. So in a sense, I think what we think is doing good is the ultimate bad. So, like, you were talking about killing furries. That's something I agree.
I don't think that we should kill people just because they're stupid.
Oh, okay.
I believe that they should be guided by people who are by mentally healthy people and sane people, and that they should be shown the right way. Because I honestly believe that because divine messages happen on such an ethereal level, when they get watered down into human language, inevitably the divine message in a sense becomes distorted.
Yes.
And there's a reason why music and art has such a beautiful and large place. And there's also it's also the reason why body language, for example, is so important. The tonality of what you say. Let's say your name is Arcane. I'll be like, hey man, fuck you, Arcane. But if I scream at you, oh fuck you, man, like who the fuck do you like that inevitably, I'm saying the same thing, like, oh fuck you, Arcane, like that it changes what it is.
It's like how we express morals is ultimately what matters. Like hurting people isn't good.
Exactly.
Stuff like that. But then what if you talked about the divine messages being mixed up because it's like ethereal, trying to like be communicated through definitely. Humans. But then I'm a firm believer, for multiple reasons that we can get into if we want to, but like I think there is God. The God that exists is an evil God. So essentially all these divine messages that have come from that God are actually to mess us up. We are that God's puppets. So that God did create us. We are whatever, a product of it. But it's still a bad God, and it's still lying to us. Like, it seems like you are reaching upwards and I'm reaching downwards. Like, downwards is kind of what I know. I think of a lot of other people's struggles when I think of my own. Like, I know I didn't have it as bad as most people on earth. So then, like, to reach upwards is almost ignorance, bourgeoisie, whereas to turn into the storm, let's say, and to be sad, to be okay with death. The strong should try to work towards absolute self-understanding. So through a Hegelian lens, I think like your maybe religious views kind of fit in there. Like you have to have certain milestones of enlightenment, let's say self-overcoming, and once you do so, and you like prove your self-recognition to the collective and in the world, you can kind of become like a rational agent, and you can consider yourself a good human, let's say, and you're working towards the human spirit, the flourishing of the human spirit. I agree with all of that, and I think that I just have my own way of doing that doesn't ignore like human suffering.
Perhaps currently, yes, you are in pain. And I think it is a good thing that you are embracing that pain, because I actually found my meaning for life at the lowest point of my life. I couldn't sleep at night. I used to sleep at perhaps 6 a.m. I was just in the pits, honestly.
Damn.
And I was miserable. I wasn't at peace. I was like, it was really bad. And I knew that I knew I was going to, try and end my life if I was going to end my life if I continued that way.
Yeah.
But the moment I was about to do so, there was a voice within me that emanated and was streaming through me and says, no, Arsalan, you can't do this. Because if you do, everything you've been through and everything you are meant to be will have been for nothing. You must hold on.
I'm sorry to take away from the story, but was it a real voice?
It wasn't an actual voice. It's not like I actually heard it, but it was from within myself, right?
Right, okay.
It was a very loud thought, a very loud, very powerful thought. It is now, and like actually now, very interestingly enough, like I've spent a year in Los Angeles as well, a year and a half. I've done about like 2.5, I've done 5 quarters at my university, and now I'm back in Pakistan for a bit. Like I had a bit of a visa problem because my passport was stolen on gunpoint in downtown LA 5 years before my flight to Pakistan.
Wait. You've stolen at gunpoint?
Yeah, man. I was shooting a music video for my song, You Know. That's the name of the song. The song's called You Know, and my friend, he's from Montreal, Jordan. He had been wearing a t-shirt in like 32 degrees Fahrenheit for an hour. So he was like, yo, I'm starting to fucking freeze. I said, go to your car, go get yourself a hoodie and stuff. And the moment he was out of my eyesight, this was also, by the way, this was midnight in downtown LA. This black guy just came and he had a gun in his hoodie, and he was wearing my jacket. It was a Zara jacket, leather arms, red arms with these flames. It was pretty cool, man.
Wow.
And he stole my jacket, and my passport was in that because it was my form of ID.
But they found your passport, but did they find your jacket?
No, the jacket's gone, bro. The jacket's gone.
Welcome to LA, whatever.
LA is fucked. Dude, LA is so fucked. Insane.
Yeah.
There's just too many homeless people there. It's really messed up. But yeah, yes. So and the U.S. political situation is also fucked, you know. And obviously we as around the world, a lot of people follow it because again, for better or for worse, the U.S. is one of the most powerful government. Is probably the most powerful government in the world. Mm-hmm. So
honestly, what interests me about this isn't Trump or Kamala, because they're both fascists. They're just different styles of fascist. Trump is like overt, and he's like
that's ridiculous.
Outspoken.
That is a terrible take.
It's what?
I said that's a terrible take. That they're both fascists. There's different brands of fascism.
Would you like to? It might be terrible. I don't know, but
well, how do you define fascism?
Exactly. I think that's
not exactly. It's a question I'm asking you. Like, how do you define it?
Doesn't fascia mean like under one control? It's like an ancient Greek term.
It's like the faggot thing, right? It's like everyone pushed together.
Yeah. So it basically be like it's like a bundle. The symbol for it is like a bundle of sticks or whatever.
Yeah, but those bundle of sticks are like embodying one person.
Excuse me, guys. I'm sorry. It's like if in Pakistan right now it's 8:20 p.m. I have to go for dinner.
So. Oh yeah, no problem, man. Later, man.
Okay, man. Take it easy. Bye.
Later.
All right, that's chill with me as well. But, how do you define fascism then, other than just the definition, other than just like the etymology of the word?
I don't know the word for word definition of fascism, so I'm going to concede that that probably is a bad take. But I was kind of meaning like they are both products of the ruling class that are lying to us, the general public, and fascists don't always do that. I know that, but at the same time, their goal is to control everyone under them. Was my definition of that. Versions of fascists, I guess.
So you could say I'm not asking for like a by the book, really analytical definition, because that doesn't really exist for fascism anyway. But if your like main criteria of fascism is just that they want to like exhibit control over people in society, it just seems like such a loose definition that ignores like key parts of how fascism has like functioned historically.
What are the key parts, I guess, that are distinct?
I would say so: personality cult, authoritarianism, and ultranationalism. Those are the three things that I would say would make you a fascist.
And you
now,
don't think
you can have those three things and still not be I don't know, maybe.
You're right. I
so
see.
Donald Trump definitely has those three characteristics, 100%. I don't think Kamala does though. I don't think she's constructing a cult personality. She might have authoritarian tendencies. I have no idea, but she certainly is not an ultranationalist, right? Like that would be my like the key pit that I would pin down for fascism, like against other just authoritarian movements.
How do we know that? How do we know that that's not just part of her, the part of fascism that's like, you know, like the image, the id or whatever of the fascist movement? Like, isn't that just how she appears and appeals to the populace?
Yeah, she's just like hiding the ultranationalism behind the scenes. Usually the fascists hide the authoritarianism behind the scenes and everything else is front, but she's hiding the ultranationalism. I don't know how to respond to that, guys. I've never seen like any democratic like presidents exhibit any of those, you know, like ultranationalistic or personality cult behavior.
Really? Like Obama.
While Obama, had like these big speeches and featuring himself as like this big mover of change. I think that he was more pressing that, like, I think that was, I don't necessarily think it's a personality cult because it's like, he's not unchallengeable in that role, right? Like there were plenty of Democrats who like challenged Obama and Obama like listened to their challenge and went, okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I'll move from this point to that point or something, right? There's plenty of examples of former US presidents all the time, even like the most authoritarians, like taking advice from other people in the party who are against them and taking criticism and stuff. Donald Trump doesn't do that. Like if someone criticizes Donald Trump who's in the Republican Party, he will do like everything in his power to like destroy their career and like get them kicked out of the Republican Party. He even did that to Fox News when they reported that he lost the election, and he was like telling all his like rabid followers to like stop watching Fox News, and they were getting like really stressed over it. There's like whole during the Dominion lawsuit, all this stuff is like on public record now, but they were like behind the scenes emailing like, yeah, Donald Trump's a fucking fascist, racist, like dickhead. And you saw the Tucker Carlson one where he's like, I hate Donald Trump personally. Like, yeah, like they like he went after them for like going against his personality cult. If that happened to Obama with CNN, which it did, he wouldn't do that. And that's like the key point that I would like differentiate just being like a really charismatic, personality focused politician towards being like an actual personality cult type.
So you would say Trump, that applies to Trump, but not Kamala, not Obama, not. The reason why I said that earlier was, the reason why I said both candidates were fascist earlier was in response to the, I don't know if you saw the Tony Hinchcliffe speech the other day. It was like this really racist comedian at a Trump rally where he says racist things, but it's comedy. So it's like a meta-ironic commentary, let's say, on racism itself.
Yeah,
but he did this at
I don't know how far I agree with that, but yeah, I can see what he certainly presents it as that. Yeah, I've seen a few episodes of Kill Tony when there's comedians on there I like. That's like the show that he hosts. Yeah,
so that's why I said I was gonna say I don't find the candidates of the U.S. like any U.S. President is gonna be. I throw around the label fascism a lot because I don't care that much about these loose terms. I was wrong in saying that, but at the same time, I was only meaning like U.S. politics is more controlled by Tony. Like in that instance, I think that's a symbol of how U.S. politics works. It's not controlled by the candidates. It's controlled by what the people surrounding the candidates say.
I 100% agree. If this was anyone else other than Donald Trump, I would 100% agree with you. Donald Trump is like a fucking mafia boss. Like he's genuinely like really, really trying to like control the media, like literally. Have you heard what he says at his rallies about like mainstream media, like they're the enemy of the people, we need to like shut them down, I'll legislate against the mainstream media if I get into power, that kind of thing.
You don't think Trump is like the ultimate alpha? You wouldn't say his narcissism is like something perfect that humanity needs or America needs?
No. Why would it be? What?
Trump isn't weak, and Kamala is weak, Bernie's weak. They're like betas. Trump is like an alpha.
I mean, I might agree with you in like I don't know whether you're like taking the piss here, but I'm just assuming not. If you're saying like, I mean, I would partially agree, but you wouldn't say that's true for like Reagan, right? Like Reagan was certainly a very assertive, slightly narcissistic man, but like his policies were not good for the US because he was like controlled by people behind the scenes, mostly like big business people who he hired and like put in his like filled his cabinet with billionaires and stuff, right?
Right. Ronald Reagan.
So I would say you can have someone who has those characteristics of being like a strong alpha man who will like bring about a strong country or whatever, who because of other factors with him ends up bringing like awful, terrible things. And I would say that's exactly the case with Donald Trump, because I don't think Donald Trump was an alpha, and I don't know if you've heard, this is a point I'm stealing from Zizek, I think. But he calls Donald Trump the ultimate postmodernist, and I couldn't agree more. He's like the hell world nightmare version of like, if you went to like Baudrillard and like told him about this, he would just kill himself immediately. He's like pure simulacrum. But it's not just that. He's able to both like be extremely pro-Israel to the point where he's like, yeah, just kill all the Palestinians. But at the same time, he'll like meet up with Nick Fuentes, and he'll be open allies with like the neo-Nazi far right and like the Patriot, the Patriot Front who hate Israel, and he's able to do both of these things because he's able to have this like ironic edge of all the time where you can say, oh, where anyone who looks at him can like actively reinterpret what he's doing. That's what I think his main stick is. Like, maybe you'll say he's like an alpha man or whatever, but I think that he's more opening himself up for like other people to be able to actively reinterpret what he's doing. He's never like conclusive, this is my belief.
I feel like he isn't always conclusive because nothing he says is absolute, because it's part of like this hyper real narcissistic, like he's not even saying facts, he's just saying whatever gets him farther. So like actually I completely forgot what I was gonna say. Sigma. Oh yeah, he's like the father figure of the world. Like,
what?
I think that it's needed.
You don't want a father who's like you're sitting watching TV. Let's say you're like, I don't know, 16, 17, watching The Sopranos, and he's like, this is a terrible show, turn this off right now. You're never watching this again. And then you walk down 2 days later and he's just watching The Sopranos. You wouldn't want that as your father, right? You might want like the harsh man who's able to dish out. If you were watching like a gore on the TV or something, and then he did that, and then you never see him watching gore, he doesn't watch gore, fine. But like, if it's something like what I just brought up there, that's what Donald Trump does, and that's the father that is like the worst for you to have. It's someone who's not just hypocritical, but like directly acknowledges that hypocrisy as like a method for attaining power, like over someone. That's what I would say is like possibly the worst possible outcome for an authoritarian, and that's what I think Donald Trump is.
What about him having more mimetic power and thus more natural power because like genes and memes?
I mean, yeah, he is more funny than anyone else in like politics. I don't know. His most recent stuff hasn't been. I remember really enjoying in 2016 when he was like in the Republican primaries and he was like debating Hillary Clinton. I remember finding that really funny, and I went back to it recently, and it was still really funny. But his like recent stuff he does is really weak, honestly.
What are the Tony Hinchcliffe jokes?
I mean, the ones I saw were not that good. He stole that fucking that joke about Puerto Rico. He stole that joke. The joke is, hey guys, there's a big pile of trash floating through the ocean. Yeah, it's called Great Britain. I don't know what we've done with this. Like, how have we not cleaned this up yet? Like, that was the original joke, and he's just stole it. Like, maybe if I hadn't heard the joke before, it would be funny. But I mean, that's not him, right? If Donald Trump was straight up just like, yeah, I tried to overthrow the government. If you asked him, did you try to overthrow the government in 2020? And he goes, yeah, I tried to overthrow the government. Yeah, I did that. I tried. I failed, and if I fail this time again, if I lose this election, I'm going to try again. If he says something like that,
he'd be put in prison. He'd be put in prison if he actually admitted to it.
Well, exactly. But like, it seems to me like behind the scenes, he will just admit that. Like, So, for example, in the trial, in the trial for this, his defense was to go to the Supreme Court and ask for criminal immunity. That's not like a moral defense, right? That's just like, oh, I need to be legally immune to this, right? But like openly, he'll do everything he can to muddy the water with his voter base. If you went back to the Nazi Germany and went to one of the Nazis, oh, what do you think happened with the Munich Putsch? They go, oh, he tried to overthrow the government. And they go, oh, was that a good thing? He went, yeah, he was trying to install Nazism. Right? That's fine. If anything, that's kind of giga chat, that they're just open. Yeah, we tried to coup the government, whatever. But like the fact that his fan base that his supporters have been put in a position by him where they're like genuinely convinced that he did nothing wrong on January 6th is like kind of the opposite of Chad. It's that postmodern like hyper reality facade. So no, I don't think he does that. I think he's able to like brain fuck his like delusional Christian fan base into sorry, I don't no offense if you're a Christian. If Trump gets in power in the US, I'd be fucking worried. Like, and maybe I'm just like a Trump derangement syndrome or something. But he tried to coup the government last time. Like, I'm
afraid of the powers, the other powers in the world. You know how the Zog manipulates the left.
The Zog, like Mark Zuckerberg,
like Zionists. You know how they manipulate the government and the world.
No, they certainly lobby the U.S. government. I don't know if they manipulate the world.
Okay, what would you say is the predominant?
I do not believe in the JQ. No.
What is that?
The Jewish question.
I don't know what that is.
What you were hinting at? No, I'm not. Okay. All right.
You're not. You are Jewish.
I'm not Jewish, no. Did you know COVID-19 lockdown? So I'm 18. No, I'm 19. I'm in like uni. But during lockdowns, I was like 14, 15, 16. I was in that area. So I was like, I stopped speaking to everyone. I just went on Discord all day and I just debated people on Discord. So I'm like really familiar with these alt-right circles. So what I'd say about the alt-right circles is that essentially they hold that like you should be loyal to like your white identity, essentially, and they can never justify it. They can never ever justify it. Or they would say, I would just say, well, why do you care so much about the white identity? And then they would just go into a 5-hour long like a 30-minute long ramble about the Roman Empire or something. And I just go, yeah, that has like no relevance. I don't know why you believe this. It's just that my idea is that they like have the general like problem with like modern society is the lack of like group identity. That's generally where I would place it. You're not an individual. You're always part of a social structure. And if you're not part of a social structure, you're going to be like a miserable piece of shit, right? So these people are generally just like shut-in weirdos. And instead of doing like the schizo-based thing and just becoming like a shut-in weirdo and not speaking to anyone and reading philosophy all day, they just scour Discord for like a collective identity. And then they eventually just, get introduced to all of the histories of whiteness, and they're like already conditioned into white supremacy because we used to at least live in like a very heavily white supremacist society, so all the signifiers of white supremacy are still everywhere. All that happens is that you need one justification that you'll accept. You can be brought into all the other schizo babble about like the Roman Empire and Hyperborea and Aryan supremacy and ancient Aryans in Persia and shit.
I agree.
You can accept one, you can accept the rest of it, and then the more you accept, the more brainwashed you become, and the less likely you are to actually like turn away from it. And then when someone comes to you and asks you, well, why do you want this white identity so much? You don't have like a core argument. You have something that connected you to this identity, and then you have a group of people who also like love this identity and want to share it with you. That's another crucial thing.
As long as you're racist, they don't care what race you are.
Exactly.
Basically.
Yeah. And they're like genuinely way more accepting than the left. Like if you're some like dumb, I don't know, a little bit dim, like 20-year-old man, like mid-20s man, there's nothing going on in their life, they work a dead-end job, they don't have a girlfriend, they've never had a girlfriend, that kind of thing. And then you try and go to the left and you have some of these like, preconditioned racist thoughts in your mind, and you like voice these to left communities, they'll tear you apart, honestly, like in a way that's not necessarily like bad, I wouldn't say like morally, but like it certainly would dissuade someone from going to those communities anymore, right? Like it's not easy to accept that left-wing narrative. As soon as you ask them about, oh well, why are black people committing X amount of crime, they start going on about like this intellectual babble, right?
Well, I think there are cultural differences. Like obviously, I think that's a stupid argument. Like black people commit most of the crime because of their cultural condition, I think, but also like
example, by the way, there were so many different like potential really alluring arguments that could bring someone into the schizo realm of like,
but then when you say it's wrong that they try to cling to their white identity, would you say it's wrong for a person of color, let's say a black person, to try to cling to their black identity?
Yeah.
It is. So like the Wu-Tang Clan, they lean heavily into their black American identity, I would say. You would say that's wrong or racist?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's... I don't know about saying it's racist, but yeah, I'd say it's wrong. I understand why they have like this history of discrimination in the US that would like actually back up what they... because they're black, right? That would actually back up this identity. Like the black identity wasn't created out of like a will to onto others in the way that the white identity was in the US. It was created out of like
suffering. Do you think white people are being subjugated to a lack of identity or a death of identity?
I think what we're seeing is that we're seeing that like white people have really never had a culture, like a white culture. You know, critical race theorists, people say this all the time. And then idiots on the left will repeat that, like, white people have no culture. But, like, English people have culture. Italian, well, that's arguable. Italian people have culture. French people have culture, right? But, like, white people don't have culture in the same way that black people actually do have culture because they're, like, bonded.
Right, I see.
I don't know if you can, but no one's ever been able to name this before, even, like, the white supremacists. They've never been able to give me an example of, like, something that has come out of, like, purely just the idea of whiteness. Because whenever they say this, they'll say something like they'll go into a rant about like some historical thing, and I'm like, okay, well that's because of the Roman Empire, right? Well, that's because of the French, that's because of the English, that's not because of white people. If it were to be something that white people did as an aspect of their white identity, I think the closest I could get to it would be like Manifest Destiny in the US, but even that is more like a Christian American thing.
What about saying like gosh darn it, or like having picnics? Isn't that white culture?
Having picnics. This is where I'd say, this is where I go from there, because I agree, right? That is like white American culture. But at the same time, it's like take a white American from like the rural South, right? And then take a white American from like San Francisco and like have them speak to each other for 30 minutes. Oh, yeah. And then take like a black person from like rural, the rural South, and then the white person from the rural South. They'll have more in common than the San Diego person and the white person from the rural South, right? That's what I mean by there's no like unified white culture in the US.
So I'm saying like white culture, but white culture doesn't exist.
Yeah, it doesn't exist, so you have to create one. Right? These people have to like create this like schizo-babble nonsense. I mean, no offense.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. Inferiority complex.
Yeah. It's less so that like that white identity is something you're clinging to. I mean, like, yeah, sure, you cling to that white identity, sure, whatever. You cling to a furry identity, you know. I might not like furries. I may like feel like weirded out from furries, but I have nothing against it. The problem is that like essentially the white culture that you're calling back to that existed like back in like 1800s America, primarily through Manifest Destiny, was one focused on like subjugation of others. And if you listen to these white supremacists speak, they unilaterally support the subjugation of other races. Black supremacists do not generally, and there are some obviously, but generally black supremacists do not support like the subjugation of other races by black people. Generally they support like we should fuck off back to a country and make our own like ethno-state there, right?
Right.
Not all people who are like identify with black culture are black supremacists either. Whereas, no offense, a vast majority of people who identify with white culture are white supremacists. Have you heard of a band called Death Grips?
Yeah, I love Death Grips.
Yeah, see, they're so they exist like without identity. They're a synthesis of like this black American rapping along with like this like white dominated space of like math rock, along with like this more mixed white and black space of like EDM electric like music, right? So they have like those three people in the band that have like MC Ride's really into like he's not into it, obviously he's like into this occult schizo shit, but like he has very strong elements of black culture, and then Andy Moran has a mix of the two, and then Zach Hill's very much like nerd rock stuff, right? So they're the perfect synthesis of these three things. They come together to make something like without culture, or like without a culture that we have in the it has like the meta-ironic internet culture, but when they released The Money Store, that culture didn't really exist yet.
Culture based on like mimetic differences instead of genetic differences, like their skin color.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like now we have this new micro identity of like these people who have this like shared like identity, like the Hegelian ego. So it's like weird, freaky like identity that could never come about in any other age, right? And then like within like I don't know, I would say even with a few months, it will be just like morphed into the internet. All the things that they come up with will just be morphed into the language of the internet, or like the subcultures that they're around, and then depending on how influential those words are, then they'll get pushed into the mainstream internet, and then that'll be all over TikTok and Instagram Reels for the next like 5-10 years. What will happen is that we'll just have like trillions of little groups of individuals who like synthesize these like seemingly schizophrenic combinations of words and of ideas and of culture and stuff, and then bits of those will like come about in the mainstream culture and just like inform that. And in fact, we're already seeing this happening with brain rot, with like Skibbity Toilet and Riz and the kid. Oh, he's so cool, the Rizzler. So for example, the name the Rizzler, if you brought those people up, if those people were around on the internet like 3 years ago, right, they probably wouldn't be popular, but let's say they were popular like 3 years ago, that kid would never be given a name like that. He would just give the name, he would just have whatever name they gave him. Because of the current state we're in the internet, this like my internet micro celebrity this internet micro celebrity can
why is that funny to you?
This internet micro celebrity can post some videos and go viral a bit, and then they're on a stream with some other internet micro celebrities, and then this little kid who's like really cool comes on, and then everyone goes, oh my god, this kid is Floating Signifier, this kid's Floating Signifier, that's his name now, Floating Signifier. And then now he's like inextricably linked to that original group of micro celebrities, because the Rizzler is just like some random kid. He's not related to these people at all. He's just some random kid who was on the show, who was on a live stream with them.
Could be anyone.
He was like friends with the person who was on the live stream. He's not even friends with those two before that, by the way. He's friends with the other person on the live stream.
Oh, I thought they were brothers. The Rizzler.
No, they're not brothers.
Oh, okay. Wow.
The Rizzler is not related to Big Justice.
So the Costco guys, he's not a Costco guy? Rizzler?
He's not related to them. Well, he is a Costco guy now, but he's not related to them.
Oh, okay, that's confusing.
He's like part of a complete. I know it's confusing. It's so fucking weird.
That seems illegal.
No, I think his family's okay with it. I follow his like account on Instagram, and I see his like reels, and he's constantly posting. Well, I say his family's constantly like posting like funny videos with him, and they're completely disconnected. Because I was really obsessed. I was like, who is this little kid? Is this guy related to the Big Justice in some way? In these like the Boom guys. So I did some research, and they're not even slightly related. They didn't even know each other before this.
Yeah, mashing of a bunch of different cultures and universes and scales.
Exactly. You have like a series of Chinese, like in the ancient China, you have a series of Chinese culture, and they're like interacting with each other, and then like after like 50 years or something, after like 50 years they produce some cultural synthesis of all their things. Another 50 years they could produce something else, and then like 100 years or something, and then like more like 300 years they produce some like grand piece, like the five. Oh, was it the five? They were during the Chinese Civil War in like ancient times. One of them was Sun Tzu, the other one was Lao Tzu, one of them was Confucius. They're like the 5 big Chinese philosophers, but they all produce like one huge like momentous work. Obviously the most famous one is The Art of War, but that was like their big cultural synthesis at the time. We're just going to have like trillions of those, but obviously because there's more of them, they're going to be undervalued, and they're just going to exist in this like hyper brain rot internet sphere. And in fact, they probably will produce some really interesting philosophy. They already have produced really interesting philosophy, but yeah, I don't think we'll become homogenized. I just think that we'll have one central, like you could say, identity, but it's not really an identity. It's just like just a series of floating signifiers. Essentially, we'll just have a central core of floating signifiers that exist in like the core culture of the internet, and then we'll have like these small micro groups that people are a part of on the internet that produce their own cultural output, and then that's merged with everything else.
I see what you're saying, and I agree with what you're saying. Like the cultures, everything's getting like hyper real and complex, and I'm afraid that people will return to more material modes of identity, or like more material like distinguishing characteristics. People are having the reaction of trying to cling to their more basic cultural roots, like how America felt when they grew up. There's no like white culture, but there's a culture that black people had in America, and now that culture's gone.
I don't think they're going to survive.
Okay. I see.
Yeah, the reaction. Yeah, no, I agree fully.
And they won't survive. They just will.
Yeah, they'll die out just a
okay.
Time. Unless they're able to do something akin to the French Revolution, no, they won't succeed. They'll have to do a grand, total paradigm shift, or they'll die off like old reactionaries do.
You don't think it'll just be a general feeling like people will be born into such cultural confusion, disarray, or whatever, that like they will young people?
I think the problem with the reason it's happening to Gen Z, is because Gen Z is like halfway. Like I know what life was like before the schizo internet shit, right? I remember going out into the street and playing in the snow and like never even thinking about my phone and shit. These Gen Alpha kids now, fully from the day they're born, they have a fucking screen in front of their face, right? It's like they are in the internet from the second that they're born. That's what I would say would bring about schizo hyperreality, which is kind of already developing. But that's the difference between like the reaction we're getting to it now and like why I would say that reaction won't persist in the future. We'll have to see actually. Speak to me in like 20 years. We'll see how Gen Alpha develops. But as far as I've been able to tell on the stats of Gen Alpha, they are way more like what I'm describing than Gen Z. Absolutely. It's something ridiculous. Like 80% of them identify as something other than the gender binary. Like, and that's a perfect example, right? Enough of them, like a significant amount of them, are like non-binary or something else along those lines that is like different from the gender norm, that they don't identify with it anymore because of the internet, because they've grown up with it. You say like, well, I've never had this identity, but the reason that you feel that lack of identity is because you've been like subconsciously conditioned in your early life to like seek out identity, and then as soon as you're like an adult, you're on the internet, and it's like you're now in this new internet culture where it's like, no, identity doesn't exist.
It's like that Heraclitus, like you never step in the same river twice. Like that's what culture is. It's like a river.
The internet is like a huge dam on that river, and it's only letting in it's letting through bits. But like, Jimi Hendrix is flowing through that same river as Kurt Cobain, right? Like, sure, it's not the same river, he's not the same person, Kurt Cobain is not, so on and so forth. But if Jimi Hendrix, you show Kurt Cobain to Jimi Hendrix in this hypothetical, he'd be looking down the river and he'd be going, oh yeah, it's going in a straight line. I see him going down. Oh yeah, cool. Show Tupac Future though, or you show Tupac someone like JPEG Mafia or something, or even Death. If you showed them something like that, and like Tupac would look at that, and it'd be like he was looking over a cliff, right, over a dam. It'd be like, what the fuck is this?
I want to show Mario Judah to Beethoven.
Yes, exactly. If you listen to Sun Ra.
Listen to what?
Sun Ra.
No.
I'll link you an album.